Let's talk about production. Think about the way you study for an exam. So you're going to use some inputs, let's say your IQ, your previous knowledge. You perhaps are going to use, your friends. You're going to ask them to study with you or perhaps to help you understand some problems. And you're also going to use your time. Let's say if you're studying for an exam that's tomorrow, you probably have about 24 hours in total. You're going to use some of those 24 hours to study for the exam, and then you're going to try to produce some correct answers. Right? So these are your inputs you're going to use, and the correct answers in the exam is the output that you will produce from using these inputs. Now, in the middle is how you're going to study for the exam. So you study in different ways. You're going to use these inputs. You're going to study using those inputs. You're going to produce at the end some output, so correct answers. So this is how the production process works. Now, furthermore, you know that at least in the previous on the next 24 hours that you have to study for the exam, some of these things are pretty fixed. I mean, some of the things you won't be able to change. Your IQ or your intelligence level that you have at this moment, you may be able to change that over the periods of years, but in a period of one day, you're probably not going to change that very much. So that's probably an input that is fixed for you. On the other hand, the time that you use between now and tomorrow for the exam, you actually have complete control over that. If you can study 5 hours, you can study 10 hours, you can study 15 hours, and the number of correct problems that you get if you study 5, 10, or 15 hours may actually be different. But this is an input that you can change from here until tomorrow. So what we're saying here is that the production process that you will use to create some correct answers for the exam is you're going to use some inputs, you're going to combine them in some way to produce some output. So, and some of those inputs, at least in the short term, they will be fixed, and some of them will be variable. This is the same way any production process works. Think about the way, for instance, you will produce pizzas if you have a pizza parlor. Well, you're going to use some inputs, and some of those inputs is going to be, well, your oven. You're going to use some cheese. You're going to use other ingredients, pepperoni and so forth. You're going to use your workers. And then you're also going to probably need a place, a locale. And you're going to combine those inputs in some way to produce some output. And this output, again, is going to be your pizzas. And in the same way that some of the inputs, at least in the short term for studying for your exam, were fixed, some of the inputs, at least in the short term for creating some pizzas, are also going to be fixed. Think about your inputs, let's say, in a matter of a month, right? When you already bought an oven. How easy it is to get rid of an oven in a period of a month? Well, it's going to be a little hard. Same way with your locale. If you sign a contract that is actually, let's say, 6 months or a year, in a period of a month or 2 months, that input for you is fixed. You cannot increase that, particularly decrease that input. So some of your inputs are fixed, but some of your inputs, like workers, you can actually change them pretty rapidly. So some of your inputs will be variable. So this is the same. It works in the same way. Some inputs, you're going to use some inputs. You're going to combine those inputs in some way, and you're going to produce some output. This is the way any production process works. So in this chapter, or production, we are going to concentrate mostly on what happens in this square. How you combine those inputs. We're going to call that what happens there, how you combine those inputs, your production function. All right? So, but generally, keep your eye on the big picture. What we're trying to discover is some generalities about the way this production function works when you're using your inputs to produce some output in this way.